Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about all of the 10 books that I read in July. Okay, guys, in July, I randomly had the best reading month that I've had all year, which I'm so grateful for. Also, I'm feeling like if you see any mascara out of place on my face, it's because I just finished watching Adolescence on Netflix when I was getting ready for this video, and it was actually horrible and terrible, and I was crying like a baby. So that's just an aside. Back to business. I'm not sure what really took over me in the month of July. I don't know if I was just in a huge reading mood or it's because for the most part I've been like sitting still for the most of July. I feel like I was just home, I was settled, I had just gotten some good travel, so I was in a good headspace. So it could be a number of things, but I read 10 books in July. I DNF'd one of them, so obviously we will talk about that one first because we're ranking them from my least favorite to my favorite book of July. So the first book that we have to talk about is a book that is or was in a vlog that is now never going to see the light of day because it was a failure. City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This one really breaks my heart that I DNF'd it because I had been running around town basically looking for this book because I'd heard a couple people really rave about it. Our main character Nari is this con woman with special healing abilities, and she lives in Cairo until one day she accidentally summons this Jinn warrior, and she ends up going on this adventure to, well, this dangerous adventure slash journey to Daevabad, which is the city of brass that she is somehow interconnected with. And I think, like, premise alone, it sounded really interesting. What didn't work for me was I felt like the world building of this was so dense and complex. I'm not naturally a fantasy reader. I wouldn't say. I don't think that I'm naturally drawn to it, and I also don't think that I'm naturally easy to like understand it, but I do visualize when I read. I haven't seen one thing from this book. I made it to 320, and that means I had like 200 pages left on this book. I was over 60%, I think, and I had to DNF it because at this point I was like, okay, I feel like I'm torturing myself because there was no escapism to be had when reading this book. To be honest, I feel like I was just going through the motions and doing it to say that I accomplished reading this book, but I was not having a good time. I didn't like our main female character, Nari, and there was a romance that felt so out of place and random and kind of confusing. Yeah, I didn't like that. And I will say that there was some merit to it. I really liked Prince Ali, who is our second POV. I liked him simply because I like that character arc or that trope, if you will, where the prince or some young royal kind of starts to peel back the layers of the kingdom and kind of opens their eyes to the corruption. I really appreciate that as a concept, but I don't think that this was the most fascinating way that I've seen this presented by any means. And I think that the constant confusion, I feel like I was just in a state of constant confusion, and I don't like that. I like when I'm reading to like forget that I'm reading. I want to escape, especially if I'm reading a fantasy. I want to escape into this fantasy world, and I also understand that world building takes time, and that sometimes, oh, I should be holding the book, I'm so sorry. Yeah, and that sometimes it take some time to understand the world and then you could get lost in it. I feel like 60% is too far for me to still be completely confused, and like I understand things and I understand the politics vaguely, but in no way can I describe it. And in not a nuanced enough way that I feel like I was really getting what was needed to be gotten from the story. So sorry to say, but I DNF this one. The next one is my only mystery thriller, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the only mystery thriller. And I read it I listened to it on audio. This one is The Missing Ones by A.R. Tor. This is, I think, my third or fourth book by this author. And I will say this one was my least favorite. I gave this one, I think, 3.5 stars. And it was just okay. It passed the time. In this book, we're following the story of this small, uber wealthy community where 5 years ago, three people ended up going missing around the same time. And then fast forward 5 years to present day, we see that the police have found a dead body. And we're seeing through the perspectives of these three women what really happened all of those years ago, what caused these people to go missing, whether they're dead, whether they're not dead, stuff like that. It was, I don't know, I really like A.R. Tor's writing because I feel like typically we really get a slow uncovering of the story. So I never go into this book looking for a plot twist or to be completely surprised, which is usually what I'm going into a mystery or thriller expecting. However, I feel like what really keeps me interested in these stories is the drama. I feel like the drama and the tension and like little twitches in the story. They're not even twists, but they're things that kind of change the course of the story or change your perspective on different characters. We got that in here, but I feel like the overall amount of drama and tension wasn't there. And that kind of took me out of the story. But the three POVs were distinct enough, I think, and it was an interesting way to tell the story through just those three POVs. So I like that, and I would recommend it. I would recommend anything by A.R. Tor, to be honest. But I don't know. This one wasn't my favorite, but it was still okay. One thing that I feel like I've noticed in other A.R. Tor stories that I've liked a little bit more was that I feel like there's always this proximity that the characters have to each other where I feel like they can't escape each other and they're always pretty much interacting or in each other's orbit, and it makes it really easy for things to slip up or for you as the reader to really suss out yourself what the vibe is between these characters. I feel like we didn't really get that much at all. It was really more of these three POVs having like these streams of consciousness and then interacting with other people, but not the people who are also relevant to the story. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on the missing ones. Okay, next we have a really controversial one. I've already spoken about this one in a vlog that I filmed like at the very beginning of July. But this one is Into the Blue by Emma Brody. I know this is everybody's favorite, which is why I'm a little bit nervous to talk about it. But I didn't hate this book by any means. I think in the moment, especially in that vlog, if you've seen it, I had some like very, very strong feelings of animosity towards the book by the time I started talking about it because I had started it off camera. And unfortunately, the part that I really, really loved was the beginning. I loved the first 20%, and I thought that it was so well done. I was so captivated. I was so convinced of their chemistry and their connection. And then I feel like the middle 50% of that book was not even 50. I feel like the middle 70% of that book was just, it could have been an email, you know, like it was just the same constant cycle. So this story follows AJ and Noah, who meet as teenagers slash young adults at their job, which is I think like a video store or something like that. And both of them have this passion for this TV show that used to be on TV, which was like an improv space type show that Noah's aunt and uncle actually were the stars of. And one day we see AJ and Noah be presented with the opportunity to become scene partners and do this like summer long improv class with Noah's aunt. And we just kind of see their story unravel from there. We see their connection as scene partners. We see them become friends, and we see them become lovers, and we see them become strangers who are still aware of each other, and that whole will they won't they thing. I will preface to say that I'm not the biggest fan of a will they won't they. It doesn't always work for me. It could sometimes if I'm just looking for drama, but honestly, it just usually I would say it doesn't work for me. And so I think that the story inherently wasn't for me. Like maybe I wasn't the prime target audience for it. But equally I feel like I have valid critiques because I do see the merit in the story. I saw it in the very beginning where we did have these two characters who have this palpable, ridiculous connection that is almost unexplainable, and it also feels like we were taken into these like famous scene partner relationships that we always see, like Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet and what's his name, Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone and stuff like that, where from the outside looking in, you could just tell that there's like this ridiculous chemistry, but you've never seen anywhere that they're together. You know, like they have their different lives, they have their different partners, but when you see them on screen, it's so undeniable. So I thought that that was so interesting seeing them have that connection. But the entire middle of this book, the vast majority of this book was such a missed opportunity to really dive into the emotional central conflict of this book, which I can't say because it's a spoiler. But yeah, the beginning, the 20% in the beginning of them getting to know each other, learning each other, becoming best friends, having this scene partner connection, developing it, and then one day Noah going missing until many, many, many years later. Perfect. It was so good. And then everything after that until like the very, very, very end where they are once again meeting on screen. It felt like filler. I don't know. I feel like we had a real missed opportunity to deal with the emotional weight and the emotional fallout of such a real issue between two people who really love each other. But yeah. But as I said, I feel like the very end tied it together. I feel like that's what gave this book a 0.5 star more than I was kind of feeling throughout the middle of it, because I feel like the improv at the end and that becoming like their safe space and their like kind of the only way that they know how to communicate authentically with each other. I thought that was so well written. It was so raw and emotional. And I did shed one tear, like right before those improv scenes started happening. I did. But yeah, I thought it was okay. Definitely did not rock my world by any means. Next, we have a physical and a classic. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This one I also rated 3.5 stars, but I'm always kind of iffy to rate classics unless I have studied them. So take that rating with a grain of salt, to be honest. I also feel like maybe it's a little bit more, and if I had studied this, it could have been a 5 star. But I'm also starting to give myself grace to just read classics for leisure and not feel the pressure to really study them deeply every single time. Like if I want, I could always revisit it, but I feel like putting so much pressure to like approach this academically always makes me postpone reading classics, and I don't want to do that. So I read this one and I really enjoyed it, to be honest. I don't know if I really need to explain what this is about. This one is just a classic tale of tragedy and love and the American dream, and class. In this one, our boy Jay Gatsby, he just throws these ridiculously lavish parties in his ridiculously lavish house, which is across the lake from his one true love, or his one that got away, Daisy Buchanan. And we just follow the story from there. It's a very, very, very short book, so I don't really want to say more, even though this is a Tale as Old as Time. I thought for a classic, the writing was really accessible and easy to follow. I felt like there was an aim to the story. Like, I felt like it was purposeful, and like words were used very wisely. Sometimes I feel like with classics, we are trying, or they were trying, because I'm not a classics writer, obviously, but I feel like they are almost over explaining a lot of things and trying to get the most flowery way to say certain things, because, you know, that was just the style at the time. With this one, we were really trying to get to the point. We were trying to tell a very specific, succinct story. I loved what is his name? Nick, as the narrator of this. Seeing it from somebody who's a little bit on the outside was so fascinating. I really, really liked the writing style. I also loved how the exploration of these themes were not subtle or overt and in your face. They were just like the perfect way to introduce themes and really let them guide you through the story and be wrapped up in a really satisfying way. Also, honestly, when I read it, I felt like the ending got a little bit away from me. I feel like I got a little bit of whiplash. I didn't really see the point of certain things that happened close to the end. Obviously, I understood, but I feel like there was a better way that it could have been brought home. However, I watched the movie actually last night with my husband. I cried at the end. I felt like the movie was so good and it breathed such life into the story and the characters. And I loved the visual of it. Okay, sorry for the angle change, but I think that's pretty much all I have to say about The Great Gatsby. I thought that it was really good. I love this quote that says, "They were careless people, Tom and Daisy. They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness or whatever it was that kept them together and let other people clean up the mess they had made." I feel like this quote so perfectly wraps up the story that F. Scott Fitzgerald was trying to tell here, and I thought that it was really good. There were a lot of quotes in here that I feel like really brought home the point. I feel like the beautiful writing really lent itself to the story, and it wasn't just beautiful writing for the sake of having beautiful quotes, if that makes sense. So next we have First Time Caller by BK Borson. I also read this one in a reading vlog, and this one I rated 4.5 stars. I actually really liked it. This one follows a single mom, Lucy, who is a hopeless romantic, but she's also pretty content with her life as is. She loves her daughter and her family. She loves her job, and she feels like for the most part she is a whole person, but she still does want that romantic love that everybody craves. So one day her daughter calls in to the Heartstrings radio show and kind of talks about her mom and tells the host that she feels like her mom is lonely and she wants to know what she could do about it. And so we kind of see our host of Heartstrings Radio, which is Aidan, we see them have kind of this really deep and sweet conversation, and that clip goes viral. And ultimately, they invite Lucy on to be on a couple episodes so that they could find love for her. And one thing about me, and one thing that I'm really realizing, is that I love a radio show romance, whether it's a movie or a TV show. I feel like it just always works. It always works. And or at least for me. But this one really worked for me. I loved Lucy specifically. I feel like her character is such a strong point of this book, insofar as she really kind of shows that you can be a whole person and you can be a full, content, well rounded person who has love in their life, even if you don't have a romantic connection. But regardless, it doesn't take away from the fact that you can want it if you want, you know? Like, you don't have to be one or the other. You can be a strong, independent woman and still want romance. And I just feel like she was such a perfect representation of that. And just her POVs were so funny because her life was so full and full of entertaining characters and entertaining scenarios. And she herself was funny and sweet and quirky. And I really loved her. I also liked Aidan. I thought that obviously he was the less interesting person. And I feel like that's a criticism that a lot of people give for this book. But I didn't feel like it took away from the story whatsoever. I do feel like more or less this was Lucy's story. And I mean, people love those women's fiction leaning romance or women's fiction with romance. So I don't see why it's a criticism that Aidan was just a little bit less interesting. But I also thought that he was interesting. I think that the way that he took on the life experiences that he's had and took on the life experiences that so many other people that call into the radio show have had and internalized it shows a lot about his character. And I also found myself really understanding him and his kind of unwillingness to commit, because he obviously has abandonment issues and he's scared to be too vulnerable and he's scared to get attached because you could lose it at any point, you know. I feel like he was such a valid and well explained character, even if he wasn't as fun or as cute or as interesting as Lucy. I feel like there was interest still to be had with him. What I will say is I feel like their actual on-screen moments weren't that memorable. I literally can't call back to one single one. But when they finally kind of got off screen and we were seeing them connecting with each other, or not on screen, but I guess on air, and we finally start seeing them connect one on one and without the radio show, I feel like those moments were really sweet and tender. And I mean, it's not the best romance in the world, but I definitely recommend it. I do have hair though that I don't know if they're soulmates, but I feel like not every romance needs to be absolute soulmates, you know, like they could just be the right person for the other person in this chapter of their life, and that's okay. At number 5, we have a 5-star, which it will get confusing because the book after this is actually a 4.5 star, but you'll understand when I say the name. At number 5, we have The Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon, Volume 6. This is the most recent one that I've read, and I loved it. I love them all, as a matter of fact. But in this one, we follow Emma in her birthday month. We see her come into her majority, celebrate her birthday, get up to shenanigans with the, what do you call them? The reprobates 10. Listen, to me, Hawks stole the show in this book. I have my personal stance. I am a Hawks stan. I just feel like every single scene he and Emma have together is magic. It's so good, and I can't understand being any other team, but hey, I love them all. I mean, I'll be happy for her to be in love regardless, but I just feel like Hawks was the shining star of this specific volume. And I don't know, I think at this point what happened is that it almost felt a little bit repetitive, and like we were kind of doing the same things for the past 2 books. And so I'm really excited to read volume 7 because I think that's when Arabella comes back and she is like entering the marriage market and stuff. So I feel like we'll be encountering a new set of scenarios, a new set of people, and kind of a new playing field with that marriage market stuff. So I feel like that's going to be really interesting and fun. But I still rated it 5 stars. I mean, I loved it. I had a great time. I was cheesing. The ending was really interesting. Really interesting. But I just love the series. At number 4, we have Ask Again Yes by Mary Beth Keith. This one is a family drama. It follows Katie and Peter, who are childhood sweethearts, and we follow them over many, many decades ultimately. But we see them first as children, and we see them as neighbors whose parents are at odds. They don't really get along. And then later on in the story, we see tragedies strike that kind of draws an irreparable line between the families. I gave this one 4.5 stars, even though it lacked absolutely nothing. I felt like this was exactly what I wanted. And even if I wasn't sure exactly where the story would go, it gave me the same themes and a really interesting perspective on love and family and forgiveness, and the mental health representation in this was so incredible. I have very specific notes on this one, so I don't want to talk off the cuff. So forgive me for reading a bit. I said that it's such a strong family drama slash generational story. It really showed the impact of mistakes and untreated mental health on your children. And I also feel like it spanned a long enough time to come full circle and find forgiveness, but also to really see those effects fully develop. I think it's easy to think that your kids will be impacted by things like this, and then it's another thing to see them become adults and have their own families and see that cycle start over. If that makes sense. I don't want to spoil the story, which is why I'm being so vague. But yeah, I just thought that it was done so well. Mental health being such a taboo thing back in the day was so dangerous and detrimental. And now, with progresses in medicine, you see the potential of these people and the life that they could have lived if they were given the right medication. And it made you feel so sympathetic towards that specific character when truly they felt irredeemable for a vast majority of the story. And I thought that was so interesting. I just feel like it was such a raw and intimate portrayal of marriage and family, and it almost portrayed family as this fragile thing that's so easy to break while also being so strong, and the thing that can, like, that will never leave you. Even if it feels like it does, it will always be family, you know? And I just thought the way that, like, the dichotomy of that and the way that it was discussed was so well done. This was by and large one of the best books that I read all year, even if not my favorite. As I've said on this channel before, these are all of my opinions. This is based on truly how much I enjoyed my reading experience. I'm not a critic by any means, but if I was a critic, this book would definitely be top 5 of the books that I've read this year. And I've read, I think, 41. It might even be top 3, you know? Okay, at number 3, we have The Love of My Afterlife. I've also spoken about this one at length in a vlog, so I won't yap your whoa, can I speak? Won't yap your ears off about this one, but I give this one 5 stars. Honestly, if I'm being so for real, it's probably more like a 4.5, 4.75. I don't know if it's a full 5, but I have been being more gracious with my 5 stars because I realized that I could just say 6 star. You know, like if it's actually the best book that I've ever read, I could just say it's a 6 star. I could just say that it's my new favorite book ever. and that distinguishes it. I feel like all of this time I've been like, no, it has to be absolute perfection, like nothing else can compare, and I'll give it a 5 star. But it's really not that serious, ultimately. So yeah, this is a 5 star because I had a 5 star experience. I had so much fun. I listened to Evermore the entire time almost, and it was an immaculate experience. So I gave it 5 stars. And this one, Delphi, our main character, dies, and she is transported to the afterlife, which in this book is called Evermore, which is why I was listening to the album. And in the lobby of this afterlife, she meets this man who she is told is her soulmate, and she's also given this like last ditch effort to go back to Earth for 10 days to restore her life if she could get this guy to kiss her. And it did such a good job at showing the two sides of her having the second chance at life, because on one hand I feel like it really forced her to live more and to experience things and to befriend people and to widen her community and to just accept life as it comes to her instead of kind of being shut in and really not speaking to anybody, not opening herself up, and just being content with holding grudges and feeling sorry for herself. And on the other hand, I feel like it gave her this perspective that, you know, there is so much of your life that was good before you even died, and you just didn't appreciate it. You just didn't open your eyes to see the things that were around you and to see the people around you who really cared about you and wanted good for you and who were looking out for you, and you didn't even really notice because you didn't want to see it. And I thought that was just so well done. I love seeing people get a second chance at life and seeing what they do with it. And this was just really sweet. The ensemble of characters in this were all so funny and cute. Some of the relationships and friendships that she formed, they all got into their individual shenanigans with Delphi. And I don't know, she ultimately, like, she became so protective over her life by the end of the 10 days that she really could not stand to lose it because it was so precious to her. Whereas before that, she really couldn't care less about what was going on in her life. And there's a romance in here that was so well done. It was predictable from the minute the person stepped on the page, but it was so good. Like, some predictable isn't always bad, you know? And it was really fun. They had such a cute chemistry and banter and relationship together. I loved it. I loved it. At number 2, we have The Unselected Journals of Aman Lyon, Volume 5. You didn't think that I missed it, did you? 5 stars, obviously. I adored this book. I think this one is my favorite, question mark. I think so far this one is my favorite. This one was our Christmas episode. It's Christmas and St. Crispians. Ugh, it was so good. I'll be rereading this immediately in December. Like, it doesn't even matter that I read it literally this year. I'll be rereading it in December. I was sick to my stomach that I wasn't reading it in December. I can't say much about it, but I just feel like this book was the golden age of that golden age. It I'm done. I can't say anything else because I'll spoil it. But you know what? Let's do a quick spoiler. So skip until this time on the screen. I'm going to do such a brief spoiler. Yes, I'm Team Hawks. Why did she kiss Pace? I have a theory that because this is going to be such a long series, I feel like she might take a bite out of all of them. You know? Like, I think the fact that she kissed Pace's face means that he's so not her person. Like, she's so completely not going to end up with him. But the way that Beth Barry talks about him sometimes, like, there are moments where, like, there was a joke that he made where we sound so domestic. I think that was in volume 6, and she was like, "Oh, you feel like I'm your mom? Sorry." And he was like, "No." But that's how I feel. I feel like they have a very domestic relationship in that they have like this proximity and they're sharing a house. They have a domestic relationship in the way that roommates have a domestic relationship. That's all. Like I don't even feel that chemistry between them, especially with the introduction of Hawks and Islington. He's not even in the running in my head. She said something like there were footsteps on the stairs and he sounded like coming home or something like that. And I was like, girl, what? I feel like all of a sudden she's trying to convince me that this man is like the love of Emma's life. And he is just so not. But anyway, on to book number one. The best book that I read in July. I'm still not over this book. Belcanto by Anne Patchett. Whoa, sorry for sighing into your ears. This was so truly perfect and fantastic and heartbreaking and human. I loved every single second of it, even when I was completely sobbing and hysterically, like hyperventilating. As you will see from the vlog, I loved it. I loved it. This one is about a hostage situation at this very affluent businessman's birthday party. Okay, guys, editing me here. I didn't realize that the camera cut at me ranting and raving about Belcanto, but I really don't have much to say that I didn't say in the vlog that I talked about this and read this in. But I will say that I feel like this one just perfectly and captured some of the unexpected, beautiful moments that came out of quarantine. Like what this one did was preemptively, because this was written in 2001, but it preemptively showed what people would do if everything else was stripped away and all they had was right here, right now in this house, and they couldn't leave. It showed what people would really value and what they would miss from the outside world, and whether they would be thinking about work or if they would be thinking about family. And it was just really precious, so human. It focused on like that human connection and bonds and unlikely friendships. And the ending of this was expected but unforgivable, you know? I really, really love this one and I so highly rate it. It's kind of ridiculous. So yeah, that's Belcanto. And that is the last book. That was the best book that I read in July. And so that brings us to the end of this video. I'm so sorry that this clip was just like randomly thrown in there, but I need to get this video up and we had a little technical difficulty. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time with a vlog, I think. Bye.